In the video discussion, Why They Do It Inside the Mind of a White-Collar Criminal, hosted by Eugene Soltis and Nick Epley, they discuss white-collar crimes and why they happen. By definition, white-collar crimes are financially motivated, non-violent, or non-directly violent crimes committed by an individual, a business, and or a government professional. Does this affect me now? Not really. Could it affect me in the future? Quite possibly. Mr. Soltis draws us in by saying that we look at crimes from victims' perspectives and not the perpetrator's perspective. He says that victims of white-collar crimes, like insider trading, for example, are mostly abstract or the people that did not have the data that the perpetrator had access to. In most cases, the perpetrators rarely feel emotion or guilt when committing these white-collar crimes. It makes sense to me because they usually do not directly affect a specific person. It's more likely a business or multiple businesses that didn't have access to their data. Insider trading in general does not take much thought and deliberation to carry out, because it is taking trusted data and trading it. The trusted data comes from insider executives that tell each other what is going on and where to invest and where to put their money at. That way they can make a bigger profit. But nonetheless, insider trading is still very illegal. Soltis actually interviewed a lot of white-collar criminal executives on why they do it and just kept asking him questions that popped into his head. Some executives told Soltis that they never thought if something was right or wrong ethically, rather if it was legal or illegal. Since then, there's been a slight moral change on whether white-collar crimes are serious crimes. Soltis says that people are wired to see harm and danger if close to the actions, rather than harm and punishment at a distance from the action. A great analogy that Soltis used would be speeding. According to Mr. Soltis, most people speed without thinking about it, including me. But if you actually think about slowing down or receiving a ticket, which would be a close punishment, you do slow down because you think of your close punishment and how it could affect you. Most people, like me, don't think of the distant occurrences, like hitting someone while speeding. That analogy really put it into perspective and helped me understand it in common events that occur almost every day. I totally agree with him. Executives don't actively think that they are going to prison while committing the white-collar crimes, such as us speeding, to put it in perspective. So it isn't factored into their plans that they're going to prison or that it's really a bad thing. Soltis recommends that they up the likelihood of getting caught instead of longer punishments when dealing with white-collar crimes. If you up the likelihood of getting caught, they factor that into their plans because that's a close action rather than a distant action of going to prison and upping the sentences of their prison terms. Some regulators of inside trading would rather let the crime take place in order to provide an easy prosecution of the executives. It makes sense, but you would never do that for violent crimes such as an act of terrorism or murder or stealing. You don't let that happen to make an easy prosecution. Some defendants of the executives argue that the executives have too much power to be in prison or don't belong in there with the violent crime criminals. It kind of makes sense, but it's still a crime nonetheless, and they should go to prison. White-collar crime doesn't hit us hard or affect us as people as much as violent crimes do, and I agree with that statement at the moment. Most perpetrators of white-collar crimes don't have an awareness of the pain that they're causing to some businesses or people. For example, lying on a sheet of paper is easier than lying face to face to someone. And it goes for about anything. You can always hide and talk crap behind a screen or on paper, but in person it's a whole lot different. But as an accounting major here at Defiance College and hopefully a future certified public accountant, I'll have to pay very, very close attention to the logistics of white-collar crime, as I could be directly affected in the matter. I thoroughly enjoy the discussion and the outlook of why the crimes happen in the world so often.